From Williams, Iowa. We'd been up there for dinner on Sunday.
When were you drafted to World War II? Alright, well, let me start off by asking, well, when did you hear about Pearl Harbor?
Well, we heard about it on the way home from Williams, Iowa. We'd been up there for dinner on Sunday. And her grandfather and grandmother were riding with us, and I had the car radio on. And we heard it coming on our way home on the car radio.
Yeah.
I had a '39 Ford at that time.
Yeah.
Paid $800 for it.
Gosh. Alright, so when did you have to register for the draft?
Well, that was about roughly, I would say, almost a year before the war started. And then in Washington they drew numbers as sort of a lottery. And I was way down on the list. So I didn't have to go, and I didn't plan on going for a long time. I figured I'd have to take a year's training, because that's what everybody was supposed to do.
So how long was it before you were drafted then?
Well, I wasn't drafted. I got my questionnaire in March, I think it was. I'm not sure, but I think it was in March.
What year?
Of 41.
41.
No, 42, I'm sorry, 42. And then I answered it, and I was classed as 1A. Right? Well, I was classed as 1A before that. But I didn't think I'd have to go or anything, but then after I got my questionnaire, I got an answer back, and I was supposed to go in June.
To training?
To training.
Okay. Where'd you go to training then?
Well, that's kind of a funny deal. We got on had to go to Boone first, and from Boone we went on a trolley to Des Moines, and we walked about 10 blocks to the railroad station, and at that time they were closing down Fort Des Moines and going to change it to Wax, and the Camp Dodge hadn't opened yet. So they sent us to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas for, well, I guess you call it indoctrination and stuff like that. Induction.
So what'd you do there?
Well, it didn't do much in Fort Leavenworth. We went we were there about a week and got our uniforms. And from there we went to Miami, Florida. Miami Beach, Florida. And there we took our basic training with wooden guns. You probably wonder what our pay was.
Yeah, what is it?
$21 a month.
Really?
And I had to pay $6.70 a month for insurance. And out of that come my laundry. And
No.
so then, anyway, I didn't have much spending money.
So, what was Grandma doing all this time?
Well, she was home here. She got a job at J.C. Penney's in Ames, and was working in Ames at that time.
Okay. And, well, where'd you go from Miami then?
From Miami, we went to Louisville, Kentucky, at Bowman Field. I was placed in the Air Corps, or Air Forces, and went to Bowman Field, and we were there. I was the 35th, and my buddy from Des Moines was the 36th. We were the 35th and the 36th man in our outfit. It was just forming. It was a troop carrier outfit. What I mean by troop carrier, we had these DC-3 cargo planes that carried troops and supplies and paratroopers and they landed and hauled them down to, well, later on, they'd haul and made ambulances out of them and hauled them to the hospitals, bigger hospitals.
And you were in the Air Corps?
I was in the Air Force, you know. They called it Air Force, Army Air Forces.
So you didn't fly planes, did you?
No, I didn't fly.
I didn't think so.
Well, I flew, but I mean, I didn't pilot or anything like
Okay.
that.
So what did you do on the planes?
I didn't do anything on the plane. I was just a truck driver,
Oh, okay.
supposedly. And we hauled, while we were in Louisville, met the trains down at the depot and hauled the men to their different stations or different places where they were to be taken to. And we'd go in convoys, and we drove all around Louisville to the different camps around there.
So where'd you go from Louisville then?
From Louisville, we went to Fort Benning, Georgia. And there we hauled paratroopers, our outfit did.
Were you still in training at this time?
No, well, I didn't need much training because I was a truck driver and or a dispatcher.
Okay.
Because this fellow in Des Moines, they made him truck master and he made me his dispatcher.
I see.
So we kind of had it made. We were the first ones in the outfit, say 35th, out of 250 men, we were the 35th and the 36th men in there.
So you were still driving trucks in Georgia then?
Oh, I drove truck, yeah.
Okay. Well, where'd you go from Georgia?
From Georgia, we went to Maxton Air Base in Maxton, North Carolina.
And you driving trucks there still?
Yeah, we drove truck. I drove truck there. And about that time, it was getting close to Christmas time, and I was expecting a furlough to go home. And some of the other fellows, they had all hardship furloughs and stuff like that, so they got to go ahead of me. And I never did get a furlough.
Furlough is just like a leave, right?
You have to leave to go home.
Yeah. And
But I didn't get to go because they, just about the time it was my turn to come up, why they put us on the alert that we were to be shipped overseas.
so what happened then?
So then they loaded us all on a train, and we went for 7 days and 7 nights up and down, we was going west. We went to San Francisco or Pittsburgh, California, and we went just as much north and south as we did east and west because they and we had to keep the blinds closed on our train, and they didn't want people to know that everything was so secretive in them days. All the troop movements were. And we got to Pittsburgh, California, and we were there just a few days. They issued us all new uniforms, all winter clothes, heavy, long underwear, two of everything of winter clothing. So we thought sure we were going to Alaska. That's where we figured we was going.
So where'd you end up going then?
Well, they put us on the ship on New Year's Eve of '42 and pulled us out in the harbor, and we sat under the Golden Gate Bridge and watched the traffic going back and forth while they were going out and celebrate New Year's Eve. And here we sat on the ship headed for overseas. And so we headed out over the ocean, and the first 3 days I was sick. I mean, I couldn't hold anything on my stomach, and I didn't care if I lived or died.
Well, what kind of ship were you on?
Oh, just an old banana boat, they called it.
Okay.
I think there was, we were about 2,000 of us on that ship. And we were on that ship for about 21 days. And we only escort we had was the cruiser Chicago. And the cruiser followed us. It had a plane, and it would get up and fly around, all around, make big circles, and come back in, and we watched it. And then all of a sudden, here it left us. The cruiser did. And we found out, after we got to Australia, that the cruiser Chicago got sunk in the Battle of the Coral Sea. And
did it leave you to join the battle?
no, they left us right out there like sitting ducks. We were all alone by ourselves.
So they sunk it when it was right by you then?
No, they sunk it when it was gone, when they'd left us out of our sight anyway.
Oh, okay.
We don't know where it was at, but anyway, it got sunk. So we ended up in Townsville first, Australia, and we unloaded for 3 days and 3 nights. We hauled ammunition, and I did not know we were sitting on that much ammunition, or sleeping on that much ammunition in that ship. If that torpedo had ever hit us, we'd have gone sky high, because we hauled ammunition out of that thing till who wouldn't have it. And then they put us back on the ship and we went down to Brisbane.
It's in Australia.
Yeah, that's in Australia. And we landed in Australia. Oh, I don't know, it took us about 2 days to get down there, I think it was, or so, because it was inside the coral reef. We had to dodge all them reefs and stuff. But anyway, we were there at Archer Field, and that's where we were for about, well, it was 7 months from the time we left the United States until we got until we left Brisbane.
So how long were you in Brisbane then?
Well, I'd say roughly 6 months, or a little bit more maybe.
Well, were you driving trucks there? Or?
I didn't do much driving there, except haul the people, the fellows down to Old Town in the evening. We had a bus. There, see, everybody drove on the left-hand side. We had a left-hand drive bus. And
did you get confused at all?
no, I didn't. I didn't get confused, because all the traffic, it was fairly easy. But I'll tell you, it was harder to drive a truck there than it was to drive that school bus. It was like a school bus, is what it was.
So what else did you do while you were there?
Really not much of anything, except that hauled the crews back and forth to their planes, and then like I dispatched jeeps and trucks to different jobs.
Okay. Well, then where'd you go from there?
From there we flew, they put us on an airplane, and we flew to Port Moresby, New Guinea.
Wait, what about, I know you've told the story about seeing General MacArthur. Was that in Australia?
Oh yes, I'll have to tell you that one. There was a fellow from Virginia. He was a regular hillbilly. I really liked him. He was in our tent the whole time. He was a great fellow. He was a mechanic, and he kept saying, see, MacArthur kept his plane at Archer Field, and he'd take off every once in a while. And we all knew when he was going to go, because everything was supposed to be secured then. I mean, you seen people running around with rifles and stuff like that, and they had his plane all wheeled out and everything. And so this fellow, he kept saying he's going to get MacArthur to salute him. So what he done, but he loaded up a few bricks and junk in a wheelbarrow, and MacArthur had to come down the street by our garage and make a right-hand turn, sharp right-hand turn right at the end of our garage to go to the field. Well, here he had this wheelbarrow, and here we all signaled him, and he got out there and he took his wheelbarrow and he stood there like that, dropped his wheelbarrow right in front of MacArthur's car, and MacArthur saluted him back, and he picked up his wheelbarrow and went on.
So then he just drove on by and was playing then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we went on up to New Guinea after about six and a half months or so. And after we'd been up, we was at Port Moresby. I don't know just how long we were at Port Moresby. We hauled paratroopers into Nadzab and Leh. They dropped the paratroopers on Nadzab, which was nothing but a big plain, a big valley, what they call the Markham Valley.
In New Guinea?
Huh?
This was in New Guinea?
This was in New Guinea. And when they dropped there, they had this kunai grass that probably grew as high as this ceiling. And they had to burn that off.
So they could land?
So the planes could land on it. So the paratroopers burned that off. And after they burned that off, why, the planes started landing on the ground. Didn't have any airstrip. And with other supplies. Now the way we hauled supplies, we break a 2.5 ton truck in two. They were fish plated right behind the cab. What I mean by fish plate, the frame was about that deep and bolted together like this with bolts. And we'd drive that up on a ramp onto the plane. We'd have to let the air out of the left front tire in order to go through the door and make the turn and drive it right on in. Well then, we hauled planes, we hauled trucks, jeeps, supplies, of all kinds of supplies, ammunition, and everything the planes did. Not us, but the planes did. And then we'd go up there and assemble them trucks, put them back together again, and take them to the different camps where the supplies were supposed to go to.
So there was a lot of different camps there around?
Yeah.
So how long were you doing that?
Well, we didn't stay there too long. We went from there to Boona Bay.
That's still New Guinea?
That's still New Guinea. And from there to Finchhaven. And that was the dirtiest, rottenest place I ever saw in my life because of it rained continually. And it just continuous rain. It was regular, and heat. The heat was very depressing. And it was just terrible. It just reminded me of going out in the cornfield. We didn't have, at that time at home on the farm, we never had any spray or anything for cockleburrs and stuff like that, but we had to go out and pull them in between the corn rows in about the month of August or so. And it reminded me of going out in them cornfields in the summertime when the heat was just steaming up at you all the time. And of course there was a lot of snakes and earthquake. They'd have movies every once in a while and you'd sit on a box. You could feel that earth just moving like that once in a while. There's nothing but coral underneath you.
Really?
Coral.
Coral? Oh.
Coral rock.
Oh. So where'd you go from there?
From there we went to Hollandia, Dutch New Guinea. And I met quite a few fellows there. One of them was an old school teacher from Kelly, Iowa. And he was a skipper or head of a ship on a LCI, a landing craft infantry. And we went up there, and we could go anywhere we wanted to. Because we all knew the pilots. The pilots all knew us. We could hitchhike whenever we wanted. Whenever a plane went anywhere, we just asked the pilot if we could go with him, sure, hop in. And you could go whenever you wanted to go. Fact is, when we were down at Moresby yet, I'll have to tell you this story. I'm going back again. But I was charged of quarters one night. That's the one that stays up all night and wakes the guards and the cooks and stuff like that, and sees that everything is okay in camp. And there come a guy in, there was a big long orderly room, well, like a barracks deal, and I don't know, it must have been 50 feet long, and we just had one light bulb there, and the guy come in there and threw his bag down and wanted to know if he could stay there for the night. I said, sure, go ahead. Keep me company. I said, help keep me awake. So he walked up a little closer, and I said, looked at him, are you Wayne Frisk? And he said, yeah. I said, where are you headed for? Well, he said, I want to go to Australia. He said, I'd like to know if I catch a plane to Australia. I said, sure. I said, I'll get you one in the morning.
Where were you at this time?
I was in New Guinea.
Oh.
But he had to go to Australia to get a plane to go home. He had a 30-day furlough.
I see.
And so I said, yeah, sure. So we had staff sergeant pilots. And I got one of them staff sergeant pilots and asked him if he could take him down to Australia. We had flights going down there. I said, sure, go ahead. He said, and he took him down there, and then when he come home, then he told June where I was at and where he met. He went seen June and talked to her.
Because she didn't know, did she?
Well, she had an idea where I was at, but that was about it.
Because they like censored your letters.
Yeah, well, our letters were all riddled, all cut up if we said anything we wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
So they cut them out.
Yeah. So, well, didn't you said you had like some kind of code for grandma or something?
Well, that was another deal. That was to my folks.
Oh.
I told them where I was at. I tried to tell them where I was at by saying that I'd left those plow pieces of plow parts, which meant plow lays, and they were up at Charlie Snyder's, and Charlie Snyder lived just north of us. And I says, I'm sure you'll find them around there. If not, they'll be at home. So that's how they figured out that I was at Port Moresby.
Wait, I don't know how you got Port Moresby out of
Well,
that.
Lay is north of Moresby, about straight north of Moresby.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
See, the plow lays were up there, see. So that's how, that was kind of a deal that I had with my folks.
I see.
But anyway, June found out where I was at and how I was doing and everything. We didn't hardly have any clothes, wear any clothes at all. I wore shorts the whole time.
Me in New Guinea.
Yeah, and no top, just shorts.
So where'd you go after New Guinea then?
Well, then we got on after we left Hollandia, we got in Hollandia, and we got on an LST, a landing ship tank. And that boat, you'd think that you'd get seasick on that one, because it had a round bottom on it, and it just rocked just like this, from one side to the other, clear over, leaned over. We got out on the ocean and headed. We thought we were headed for the Philippines, but we wasn't sure. We didn't know what part. And anyway, we got out a little bit further, and here we met some more ships, and some more ships met us, and all kinds of ships. And I've never seen, there was just ships as far as you could see, in either direction.
Yeah, this was at the Philippines, or what?
And we went into Leyte on October the 20th of 1944.
So is that, what'd you do there?
Well, the way we went in, he brought us in with that LST, and he hit, must have been low tide, because he hit the beach, opened the doors, and we drove our trucks out, and on dry ground. We never even had to wade in or nothing. So, and then pretty soon the tide come in, and he put it in reverse and backed out. We were empty. I mean, the ship was empty, and he backed out. And they say that he might have had an anchor out behind there. I don't know, but I don't think so. He didn't need it.
So what'd you end up doing in the Philippines?
Well, we were there on Leyte, that was between San Jose and Tacloban, is where we were. And the Japs were continually bombing us. And the Navy, they were sitting way out offshore, and they were lobbing shells over our heads all night long, all night long. And the Japs, they were only about, a mile or so inland. And we were on the beach. We don't know what we were there for. We had no business there. I don't know why they put us there, because they wasn't ready for us yet. Somebody fouled up there, I think. But then anyway, we watched MacArthur, by the way, we watched MacArthur come in. When he landed. Come in there, and he come in with a big guard, I'll tell you that. But anyway, we had air raids, probably 10 and 12 air raids a night for, must have been about 2 weeks. Then we moved inland. Then they sent me and, well, there was a lieutenant, and this was on Leyte Island now. And they sent, there was an old airstrip in, I don't know, must have been about 10 miles inland or something like that. And so that was supposed to be secure. Into inland then, there was 24 of us. And we were waiting got in there, and we stayed there the first night we were there. It was one of the worst nights I ever put in my life.
Is that when you got malaria?
No, I had the malaria back in New Guinea and later on too. But anyway, this was one of the worst nights I ever put in my life. It was when there was, like I say, there was 24 of us went in there, and all we had was our carbines and one clip of ammunition. That's all they allowed us to have, because we were the Air Force. We were not a combat outfit, see. Yeah. And while we were there, why, here comes 28 Betty bombers. We call them Betties. And they go, boom, 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 boom. That's the way they change the pitch on their propellers so that they'd throw the sound off. And that gives you that vibration. And they dropped their eggs. They were meant to drop them on us, but they went on behind us. And there was boom, 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 you know, like that. And then after that, it was just getting dark, or towards dark. And here comes 13 transports in. We thought they were ours, coming in with some more supplies going to drop to us. And just dump them out with parachutes. And here we seen that red splotch on them. And so the lieutenant in charge, he says, hit your trenches, but don't fire. He says, don't let them know where you're at. And you know, that night, it turned, in the jungle, it turns dark. There's no twilight. It turns dark immediately. And when they landed just a little bit, well, to me it'd be north. Now, I don't know if that was right or not, but I think it is. It was just north of us. And south of us, there was a Marine outfit and an Army unit down there. And after they landed, they come crawling on their hands and knees, and they had to crawl right over us, you might say.
The Japanese?
The Japanese did. And I'll swear that I could reach out and touch them sometimes. I'm not kidding you.
In the trenches?
Yeah, when I was in my slit trench. Because it was horrifying, because they would bark like dogs, and they had different signals that they made, and croak like frogs and stuff like that for their signals. Well, anyway, there's 18 that never came back that night.
Oh, they found them?
There was only 6 of us that come back out of our 24, because they happened to stumble into their trenches. I was just one of the lucky ones. And the other 5 were the same way. They just didn't happen to land in them.
So,
But
you spent the whole night there?
we spent the whole night in those trenches. The Marines and the Army unit, they were firing at them south of us, because it was an old airstrip. See, is what it was. And it was, like I say, it was supposed to be secured, but it hadn't been securely secured. So anyway, that attracted their attention. And when they done that, why, we were lucky that way. Next morning, why, the Army and the Marines cleaned them out. I mean, they had Japs laying all over there. And they were wearing our wristwatches that our boys had on them, and had some of our letters and stuff that they'd gone through our camp and taken. And then about a day or so later, why, it was an awful stench there, I'll tell you. It was just terrible. There were those dead Japs laying all over out there. And, but anyway, I got out of that one. Like I say, that was the worst night I ever spent in my life.
So where'd you go from there then?
Well, we went back. Then the others come out after they cleaned it. They'd have air raids every once in a while. What I mean every once in a while, I mean probably one night they'd skip it, and then the next night they'd probably have 10 or 12 air raids. Then you'd see, just like the fireworks that you'd see at night, you know, all them sparklers going up. And between each one of them, there's 4 bullets, you know. Between each one of them little things that was going up. There's 4 bullets in between each one of them. That was the tracers that we could see. But anyway, we had this, like I was telling you about this guy from Virginia.
Yeah.
Have I ever told you that story?
I think so.
About he'd get, they'd sound an alert, and he was just kind of slow and easy going. You couldn't hurry him for anything. Anyway, he'd take his old cigarettes out of his pocket and go like this. And I don't know if I should say this or not, but he'd always sit there and he'd tap that cigarette. And he said, "Jesus Christ, here comes those sons of bitches again." And if we had to get out of bed and hit our slit trenches 10 times a night, he'd do that 10 times a night. I'm not kidding you.
Tap his cigarette thing?
He'd just tap his cigarette because he couldn't light it, see? He wasn't supposed to light it because that would give your position away. Someplace to drop the bomb or fire at you. But anyway, he'd always get that cigarette out till the all clear sound, then he'd light his cigarette. But it got to be funny because he'd done it every time that they come over.
So you had like shelters for the raids there? Is that where you?
Well, just slit trenches.
Oh, okay.
So in case they'd send out a daisy, what they call a daisy cutter. They had daisy cutters. They'd hit the ground, and then they'd scatter shrapnel all over, just like that. Cut everything that was on top. So if you were in a slit trench, you were safe, except for a direct hit from a big bomb or something like that.
Okay, so what happened after New Guinea?
Well, then we went, this was the Philippines,
Oh,
Leyte.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, then we moved on up into Luzon.
Oh, that's still in the Philippines.
That's still the Philippines. That's the main big island in the Philippines.
Okay.
We went up to Baguio and Tarlac, and then we come down to Clark Field. And we were at Clark Field then for quite a while. And we hauled supplies from Clarkfield to, we were getting ready to move again. And we figured it was to go to Japan is what we figured on, because it was just before they dropped the atom bomb. And we always had somebody, we'd take turns driving the trucks. They had all the trucks they could, and they'd load them trucks up with all kinds of supplies that we could load up with, and haul them down to Subic Bay, down to the ship yards, so they could load them down there. But we always had to have somebody riding a what they call ride shotgun,
Yeah.
because they had snipers. We had to go through some jungle in order to get to Subic Bay.
And was there Japanese like all around you?
No, they
Like in
were
the
up,
jungle?
they were up in the hills, some of them, and another funny thing is, well, I made a lot of trips down to Manila. The city of Manila was just absolutely shot up terrible. There was hardly anything left. Just north of Manila, where our troops had gone through, was a big brewery. And there wasn't a window broken in that. All they done was change shifts. The Japanese went out, and the Americans went in and started running the brewery. But anyway, that was really the funny thing about it. But otherwise, there was churches and buildings and stuff like that. They were all bombed down there. Now, the walled city around in Manila, there was a part of it that they called the walled city. Those walls were probably 30 feet thick, and they were just nothing but tunnels inside there. And they had broke open with tanks and bombs and dynamite and stuff to get in. But it was interesting in Manila. We had good relations with the people in Manila. They were glad to see us. I mean, around the Philippines, they were glad to see us. We gave them food and we gave them clothes. New Guinea was different. They didn't want to do much about it with us. Anyway, I'd been down to Manila one day, and as I come back, why, there I got out of my truck, and the fellow walks up to me, and he says, "Don't you know me?" He says, "I'm Arnie, your brother."
Oh, that's
Well, when I left home, my brother was a sophomore in high school, and he was just a little short fellow, and here he'd grown up, and I'd been getting letters from the folks saying that they hadn't heard from him for a long, long time, and they were really worried about him. Well, he was a sophomore in high school when I left home. Here he grew up, and as soon as he graduated, they drafted him, and when he got over to Italy, they sent him over to Italy. He got in on the Battle of Naples, and as soon as that battle was over with, they put him on a ship and sent him over to the Philippines. And he went through the Panama Canal, and that's why the folks never heard from him or anything. They couldn't get any word about him. And so they were sure glad when I wrote and told them that Arnie had been met him over there.
He just walked up to you and said, "Hey, I'm Arnie."
Yeah, he says, "I'm Arnie, your brother." Well, there he was, as tall as I was, and heavy and fat, and here he was just a little squirt when I left home. Because he was always short and small for his age, see. But there he grew up to be a man. I did not know him at all.
So, did you see him after that then?
Oh yeah, he got to stay with me. His CO, or commanding officer, told him, says, "You found your brother, and he'll be going home pretty quick. He ain't over here that long. Why, you stay with him, and if I need you, I'll send for you." So he stayed with me for about a week.
So what did you do after that? At the Philippines?
Well, we didn't do much of anything except, like I said, we hauled supplies down to Subic Bay, and then they dropped the atom bomb. Well, then everything kind of come to stop, because we figured the war would be over with. And when the war was over with, why, we didn't have much to do.
So
We just waited for our orders to go home.
so how long was it before you got to go home?
Well, I didn't get home until around the first part of November.
Of 45?
Yeah. So, 1945.
Was Grandma happy to see you?
Oh yeah, well, Grandma and Vern's wife. See, Vern and I got in the same day, and we got discharged the same day. We were together the whole time in the same outfit, and we even shared the same tent and everything. And so we got to be pretty good friends. And so then June met Shirley, Vern's wife, in Des Moines one day, and then when they found out that we were to be discharged, they decided to drive out to Denver, where we got discharged at Denver. And they discharged us out there, and they met us out there in a hotel. They come on a Sunday evening. But it was, then we spent about, I think, 4 or 5 days out in Estes Park, and stayed out there for a while.
Did Arnie get to come home pretty quick? Or did
No,
you-
Arnie had to stay there. He stayed there a whole year. He went on into Japan.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. Yeah. See, the war was over with, but he went into the occupation.
I see. Well, guess that's about it then, huh?
Well, I think so, except that coming home, we spent, I think it was 19 days on a ship that was a regular troop ship, and then we got in on the tail end of a hurricane,
Oh boy.
and it was a Navy ship. They had doors, and you had, every time you went into a different room, you had to step over something about this high. And they fed us. They couldn't feed us for about 3 days because of the ship was rolling so bad.
From the hurricane?
Huh?
From a hurricane?
From the hurricane, yeah.
Oh my God.
And they wouldn't let us anybody out on deck. And anyway, I didn't know whether we was going to make it or not, but you could look out through the porthole, and all you could see is that water way up there, way up high. And then pretty soon you were down in the bottom, and then pretty soon you were way up there, and there was that big valley down below you. But anyway, the first time that they tried to feed us, I don't know, there was about 2,500 of us on that ship that was coming home. And we got, I must have been close to 2,000 going through the line. Anyway, I walked in there and got my tray, and here the floor was just, it was a metal floor, and slop was running from one end to the other, just everybody had spilt and puked and everything else, and so it was a mess, and I couldn't take it. It almost gagged me.
You almost puked?
I almost puked, and I went and just dumped my dinner or lunch or whatever it was in the garbage. I don't even remember what I had on the tray. So
What was the name of the ship? Do you
I
remember?
don't remember. The one we went over on was the Maui.
Maui.
Yeah, M-A-U-I, I think it is. So
Well, okay then. I guess we're done.